Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the States
of the United States of America,
Republic
to the republic for which it stands,
under God, indivisible, with liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice for all.
for all. Rudy,
Yes, Don.
is Lisa the only person?
No, it's
And
not.
Bill?
We have trustee Juliet Thayer on. And we have Elliot Mizell. We have Henry Weisberg. And that's all I have. And I don't have anybody in the meeting room. The meeting room is clear at the moment.
Okay, welcome. You're honoring us with your presence, Elliot.
Can you hear us, Elliot?
Sorry?
I said you were honoring us with your presence.
Well, I had an invitation.
Oh.
Figured I would see what the real bosses of the village do.
Okay. I've been listening in on your meetings.
But we have a big one tomorrow. I mean, on Friday.
I know. Okay, first order of business is a public hearing on local law number 1 of 2022. The purpose of this local law is to clarify that any use or occupancy of a dwelling within a single-family residence district by successive unrelated persons claiming co-ownership, whether under a limited liability company or otherwise, is prohibited. This is I guess I would say it's a preventive measure for situations that appear to be cropping up in other villages by companies that arrange to set up corporations with a group of shareholders in terms of co-ownership, and where each owner gets to use the property for a certain period of time during the year. It's kind of like a timeshare, but it allows, it really would, if it becomes popular or used out here in our village, it would be unfortunate, and it would be really against the whole spirit of what a single family residence is, if it's not a single family. So is there anybody here to address this proposed amendment to the code?
I would like to.
Elliot, can you just identify yourself for the record?
Yeah, I'm Elliot Mizell. I'm a resident of Sagaponack at 107 Erica's Lane. I read the proposed statute. I agree with the concept. I think it's a worthy cause. I'm concerned that the wording may be overly broad and have some unintended consequences and may miss some of the things that you're after. There are families, for example, that may buy a home jointly with other long-term friends and decide to divide up their use of the property. For example, one of them may come for the month of August, one may come for the month of July. And this would seem to preclude that, which doesn't seem to be the intention. The intention, which I agree with, is effectively to stop a circumvention of group housing, where rather than many people occupying a home simultaneously, they would occupy it in sequence. Perhaps by putting some sort of a time limit or a limit on the number of successive owners might accomplish the result that you're seeking without precluding familial or non-familial, but close relation, close friendship type use of a home.
I think that's exactly what we're trying to avoid.
Well, I mean, if there were two, if there were more than two owners or three owners of a home, then I think you're getting people who you're targeting who are not residents who have a vested interest in the village. But if you had two friends of long term who jointly bought a home and they're splitting the house between them in time, I think they would be more akin to the regular residents, including vacation homeowners who come for short periods of time, maybe on several occasions during the year, but aren't full-time residents.
I don't think anything precludes somebody letting a friend use their house. But this would preclude them also being a part owner of the house. And if they're unrelated, if they're relatives, they aren't unrelated.
Well, I guess a classic example might be two long-term friends, maybe college roommates. One lives in Los Angeles, one lives in New York.
But
They
who buy
decide
the
to,
house together?
excuse me?
Who buy the house together?
Yeah, suggesting that perhaps, I mean, I don't think that's so unusual. There may be people who cohabit, who are not related, who want to own a home together and split their time using it. That it just seemed to me that maybe the wording could be tweaked a little bit. So as not,
To what?
well, I guess if the ownership consisted of not more than X number of unrelated parties, or the occupancy, the sequential occupancy didn't exceed more than 2 or 3 times per year. I mean, something of that nature, as opposed to just the broad exclusion of co-owners who are not related. In fact, it could be argued that that's discriminatory. I mean, there are many people who reside together who are not related by blood or marriage, who might share ownership. In fact, I think I know some in the village.
Ryan?
Yep, I think this up.
Yeah, please, I can't.
Yeah. Elliot, how are you?
Good. Hi.
Good. Thanks for your comments. We thought about that, in drafting this on this language. And we thought to say, the simpler, the better in this language, just to try to prevent that multi-member LLC concern where these almost become like a timeshare. And I think a lot of your concerns are ameliorated when you look at the definitional section of family in the zoning code. There are, it's a very well-developed section in the Sagaponic Code on a definition of family, and catches a lot of those, or excuses a lot of those situations where it talks about nature, size, and appearance, living together as a single housekeeping unit. They add in certain conditional elements to expand it beyond a traditional family. Having been through the Department of Justice investigations on family definitions in many, many villages, I think the Sagaponic Code is a very modern code definition of family. So I think a lot of those concerns that you have, the clearing is ameliorated by that. And so the intent of this is to stop that timeshare, repeated, non-single housekeeping unit. Your examples, the people would use the house as a single housekeeping unit. In this timeshare concept that's percolating in New York, they would not. It would be a management company that would come in and it would sweep clean the place, and you'd have your week, or you'd have week 52 and week 50, 49 as they go through and then clean up. No one would really operate as a single housekeeping unit. So I think that your concerns are addressed in the definition, and I think the simpler, the better, the cleaner as proposed tonight, I think will work still and not catch any of those circumstances that you're outlining.
All right. Well, given the broader definition of family that you just described, it sounds like you have ameliorated some of my concerns, at least. I'm also just wondering, as a technical matter, about enforcement. Is that going to be somewhat problematic?
So those kind of issues always kind of are. We require the disclosure of the LLC members as part of our CO process on change of title. Yeah, so we would get that disclosure up front, what that would be. And if we saw the change in title to the next LLC, we'll also get a disclosure of the LLC members then.
And I think, like most portions of our code. Enforcement is really going to be dependent upon if somebody complains. I mean, we have no way of knowing, and I don't really want to have any way of knowing who's sleeping in what bed on what night. But I think if it does become apparent to neighbors that there is some sort of sequential use of this property, that they might make a complaint, and then we could at least look into it.
So the law would be applied when there is an apparent problem, and this gives you the tools to do it.
Right, I mean, there's absolutely no way that we can look, even if there's a purchase agreement and an LLC that's filed with us, to tell who's actually going to be using the house and in what way will it be used. But I think this is a way of at least giving the village the right to address this situation if it ever becomes a problem that known to people. And yes, can somebody be harassed by a nosy neighbor? Perhaps. But I don't think that's what we're trying to
Address.
So I think we should adopt this. I think this gives us a level of protection against what seems to be becoming more popular. It's a full-page ad and every week in the New York Times for these companies that are forming these kind of agreements. And that's really what we're aiming at, not at if somebody and his brother, well, that's related, but two good friends share a house, the ownership of a house, and share the use of it. I don't think that is the kind of problem that we envision destroying the residential fabric and character of the community.
Mhm.
Does anybody else, on the board or anyone else on the call or here want to put anything in on the record of this public hearing?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. I don't know who Michael is, but
Michael Slifka.
You're muted.
Michael, you're muted.
I'm sorry, it's Michael Slifka. I'm here in support of the leaf blower ban. With
So you are not making any comments at this public hearing on this? Okay, can I get a motion and close the public hearing?
So.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The hearing is closed. Let me get my Bible here. We're now in the land planning portion of the meeting. I'd like to get a motion to continue the lot line modification hearing on the Gretchen Topping Corner House application until next month, which will be March 9th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
As I understand it, there's been another request by the 53 Sag Main Street applicant to adjourn that till the next meeting.
Yes, I have been working with her attorney and providing her with documentation. So she said she would not be ready for this meeting. She asked to have it adjourned to the March 9th meeting.
Okay, Can I get a motion to adjourn that matter to March 9th?
So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The Nyrick McCray modification. We asked for certain materials to be submitted in terms of easements on access and commitments that could prohibit further subdivision of one of the lots and any ZBA variances on the other lot. Those have not been received. The applicant wanted us to grant a conditional approval. I had Rhodey inform them that we would be taking no action on this until all the documentation has been reviewed and received. So can I get a motion to continue that to March 9th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me. Yeah, get these two pages separated. Minutes, we have the minutes of the planning meeting of last month.
Actually, you don't.
Which ones do we
The
have?
regular board
The
meeting is the
regular
one I
board.
sent you yesterday.
Okay.
But you'll have both by next Wednesday for their adoption.
Okay. Again, I'll defer to Carrie. Do you have anything further you wish to say about this police report?
I haven't said anything about
Oh.
it yet.
Well, then you
I
don't have
can.
anything to say.
I can this week or next week. Either way.
But
There's
no
nothing
time like
really,
aggressive.
nothing really that new. At all. Lots of false alarms, burglary alarms and fire. And let's see, alarm and fire, yep. Everything else is a very boring month.
Okay, so I would like it. Did you have any success getting notification from the department?
I did
What
not.
comes on, when?
I spoke with the chief and the chief has the duty officer send me an email telling me who's on for that day. I get it in the morning, so that's when I find out who's covering the 2 shifts. So yes.
I'll just add that there were 23 traffic stops.
All right. Okay. Well, if you find something else you want to say after you examine it more closely next week,
I've examined it very closely and so far so good.
okay.
Less than.
Old business, the Daisy Barnes LLC application for the keeping of chickens. There is no one here for the applicant. Apparently, the work had already been done on this before they even knew they needed an application. The building inspector inspected the site, had to make some changes to ensure that it was in compliance with our regulations. He says that they are compliant. If you recall, the neighbor suggested that the applicant consider moving the chicken run to another location. He has no obligation to do so. And so I think we should approve the application as it stands.
Just so, you didn't get the minutes, but at last month's meeting, you did have a very detailed discussion about the location of the run, not the chicken
Yes.
house, but the run. And you asked the it's an architect, to go back to the homeowner and ask the homeowner if they would move the run behind the vegetable garden. I haven't heard anything from the architect at all. The attorney for the neighbor did call me today to tell me that he had been in contact with Andrew Chirola, the architect for the applicant, and he claimed that the home, that the applicant was willing to move it. But I haven't got anything from them.
Well, I don't see how our approval really would have anything to do with that.
Well, that's what that was the discussion last month, and at last month's meeting, you did say that they were compliant with the code and the location, but that you were gonna give them an opportunity to
Make the
make the neighbor
neighbor
happy.
happy.
Exactly.
Well, that,
Remember, I talked about, I used the Joy Seeger rule that it would be nice if they could all talk and get along.
but I don't think that's the point.
No, I know that it's not the legal point, but
Includes the neighbors from discussing it and relocating the chicken run if the applicant wishes to do so. But as far as we are concerned, as a regulatory agency, the applicant has met all the criteria of the code. And I don't see why we shouldn't approve it.
Well, if that's what you want me to do, I will put it down for next week's agenda, because Mr. Kiley did call today to find out whether it was going to be on the agenda. I told him no, because I hadn't gotten anything new. And so he would have otherwise been on the meeting today. So I can let him know that that's your intent.
Put it on
and
the
that it'll
agenda
be
for
on
next
for
week.
Week, right,
Okay,
Brian?
yep, that's fine.
So do we need a resolution or something to,
We can carry it.
This
We
can
can
carry
carry it
over
till
to
next
next-
meeting.
without any resolution? and
It can continue to be carried as one
Okay.
business.
We go to new business. Christina Martin has said she would like to be appointed to the tree committee. Spoken to Adeline Backey. The tree committee is short, 2 members. We do not have people beating down the door
Who's
to
on it?
serve on it. Who,
You're old.
You're not on it?
Alan and Paul Brennan.
Adeline and Paul?
Adeline and
No
Paul.
Harvey, no Ann?
Harvey is
Six?
not
Oh.
yet really participate
Okay.
on it. You have moved on to bigger and better things. Uh, So.
Oh, and Amy's the other one, Amy Sullivan.
And Amy
the
Sullivan.
three actors.
is Still
Amy,
active.
Paul, and Adeline.
Yep.
So I'd like to recommend that the board appoint Christina Martin to serve on the tree committee for whatever term it is. It's every year, right?
You appoint them each year, yes,
Yeah.
correct. So this would go until July 2022, the appointment, and then at that point you would reappoint if you so desire for the next
So can I
term.
get a resolution to appoint her or
So
to approve?
second,
I did, and she said, you're just the liaison?
Okay,
I said second.
all in favor?
I,
Aye.
We do have one other person who's expressed interest in filling the other spot on the tree committee. I haven't met with her yet, but I've told, I'm informed Adeline that we have another applicant also.
is there a name?
But I don't want to use the name
Okay.
yet. Okay, discussion items. A lot of this stuff is in this little list here. is really trying to clean up unfinished business that was started while Towhill was still village attorney, but it's got kind of put off during the transition. So we'll take them in order here. Curb cut and excavation regulations, which is basically the construction of new driveway entrances. You should have in your books a copy of the proposed amendments to this code. And let me preface this by saying the code as it is in the books has been totally ignored. It's been totally ignored since the inception of the village. It says, and it's kind of ridiculous, that every new curb cut in the village, and that's the driveway of new homes or renovations, et cetera, are supposed to have been submitted to the village board for its approval. That has not happened.
That's correct.
In fact, the building inspector was unaware of that portion of the
As was
code.
I.
So
Going to
this,
the bus with them.
so this amendment is eliminating that requirement and merely requiring that the be an application to the village clerk where it's submitted to the village engineer to ensure that there is no impediments to the proposed placement of the new driveway. And if there isn't, and it meets the 10 foot or is it 30-foot setback requirement.
I don't think there is any at this point in time. I think we're actually adding it, are we not?
No.
There is a 30-foot setback from any other second driveway.
Oh, a second driveway, yes, yes.
So this is, again, to regularize the process, but ensure that there is some review in terms of the safety of the location of proposed driveway. The second part of it has to deal with, and we did attempt to deal with it several years ago, mainly at the request of the Architectural Review Board that to require special reviews of second driveway requests. They felt that it was going to harm the character of the village if, particularly in the more highly developed streets, that there be multiple curb cuts for the same residents, largely because of a desire of some homeowners to have a trophy driveway and then also a service driveway. And in fact, without any authority whatsoever, the Architectural Review Board has been denying applications that go through it for these circular driveways, and the applicants have quietly submitted to that. But that's not a good way of doing it. And this is, again, to put in the code that if somebody wants a second driveway, it has to be a service driveway in the sense, not just for servants, but that it is serving a particular specific need on that property for a second driveway, whether it's a garage that's set back where it doesn't make sense to have the driveway wind all the way around the property to service that garage, or another accessory building that may require a separate entrance, storage of equipment, or who knows, we'll know it when we see it. But at any rate, that will be a special permit that goes before this board for approval. And so do any of you have any comments on this as written? If not, we can set a public hearing on it.
I'm good. The Architectural Review Board has actually been doing what it says in it, so that's a good point. We're cleaning up housework.
Well, fortunately, no applicant has just said no. You can't tell me how many driveways I can have.
Actually, we did have this in the code when they.
Yes, but
Addressed it a couple of years ago.
wording, if you look at it,
Sure, it was a little.
makes it so vague that almost any reason can be given to justify it.
The second one, if they can be 100 feet apart.
Set a different use. Now, does having a driveway that serves the kitchen, is that a different use than a driveway that serves the
Front
main
door.
entrance? It was a little loose. Okay, can I get a motion to set up public hearing?
So we don't have a draft local law, what we have is a memo.
Yep.
So
Oh,
then Brian would provide the draft local law. If you can get that to me by next Wednesday, then the board can do the resolution to set the public hearing.
Sure, yep,
That-
yep, absolutely.
So I'll put it on the agenda next Wednesday down for that.
Okay. Next, pickleball. This also was proposed by Tony, who said that it is becoming more and more of a problem for other villages in the state and around the country. And so he had recommended that we draw up a pickleball law, and I gave his recommendations to Brian. But he said what we should do is consult a noise engineer or an expert on noise transmission, so that it doesn't look like we're just picking our restrictions out of thin air. We tried to do it through our new engineering consultant firm. They said they had nobody with any such expertise. I shopped around, I talked to our former village engineer, and I got a recommendation for this firm. It's in Connecticut or Massachusetts. Well, same thing.
Massachusetts.
And they included in your package is correspondence between me and them and their research on noise transmission on pickleball courts, and some recommendations, some of which are similar to what Tony had put in his original memo. But they determined that the pickleball noise does not come just from the ball. It comes from the racket and the type of racket, and it's particularly sensitive to the type of racket. If any of you have ever tried to do something within proximity of a pickleball game, you'll know what he's talking about. It's enormously distracting. So distilling down what his assessments were is that we should require a 60-foot setback for the location of a pickleball court, that the pickleball court should be like the noise attenuation for a regular tennis court should be recessed 4 feet below grade, and that a sound attenuating wall, which can be of wood, as long as it's at least 3/4 of an inch thick, or actually even 9/16 thick, in terms of special board that he said has been used a lot in this, to have that on the side facing the nearest border of the property, plus the two wings that would be attached to that side. The fourth side, which faces away from the property line, would not have to have the sound barrier. But this should be 6 foot high, which together achieves a 10-foot high noise barrier, which he said should be sufficient to keep this from becoming an annoyance. And he also, Tony recommended that we put a 2-acre minimum size on the lot in which a pickleball court could be placed. Oh, and the consultant, this is for the guy who's going to have to draft a proposed law, said that it's very important that the noise attenuating fence be no more than 10 feet from the edge of the sides of the court. Just said if you get it further away from the court, you lose a lot of the effectiveness of the noise barrier. So I would like to get any input that you might have on these. It's been brought to my attention that there are people who have tennis courts who also have put in the lines for pickleball courts. But we've had no complaints. So as far as I'm concerned, these are pre-existing, non-conforming, and so forth. So the requirements would be: 1, they have to get a permit to install a pickleball court. 2, they have to meet these minimum requirements. And I don't know if anybody here or on this call has any input they want to make on pickleball requirements, pickleball court requirements.
I don't know anything about pickleball.
Me either.
I don't know a lot about it, so I'll go with what is presented.
This is extremely popular in many.
No, it is, and particularly in places that have limited space.
And most of them are in clubs,
Hmm.
which are also tennis clubs, or other clubs have them as part of their amenities. But particularly in a village such as ours, where everybody wants their own amenity, this could be problematic. Okay, then, Brian, if you could, we'll give you a little time, not for our next meeting, for our March meeting.
Sure thing.
Could you give us a draft law to look, we could look at and decide whether or not we want to set a hearing on?
Sure thing.
Okay, moving right along. Let me do the last one now. That's a little more clear to cut. I got a request from Jerry Larson, who's the mayor of East Hampton Village, for the support of our village to a proposed amendment that he was persuaded. It's been talking to Fred Deal about, which would allow use of CPF funds beyond the 20% current limitation for water quality improvement projects. I told him that, speaking for myself, I was not in favor of that because the CPF tax had been approved by referendum for the creation of the preservation of farmland and for preservation of open space or other important historical assets. And that had been modified without referendum for the 20% that could be used for water improvement projects. But it was my feeling that if they wanted to allow 100% going to water improvement projects, that they should do that by referendum rather than by just amending the original resolution. I don't know how any of you feel, and I'm certainly not going to impose my view on you.
I kind of agree that to change it, it should be a referendum. I'm assuming Mayor Larson has a particular project in mind, and that's why he's looking at it. He didn't mention that, did he?
In his defense,
Mhm.
and in the defense probably of Southampton Village or Sag Harbor Village, there's no farmland to protect anymore.
Right.
There's no open space that can be created. Now, it has been used for other projects. I think the Sag Harbor Theater came out of CPF funds, the restoration of that, the restoration of the Nathaniel with Rogers House, whatever it is on the corner in Bridgehampton. Funding for that came out of the CPF historical preservation projects. It has come, Ladue got a grant to preserve one of their barns. So that potential use is certainly available to the villages, but they feel, look, they're contributing a large percentage of the tax revenues that come from the CPF funds. They should be able to qualify for the use of those funds for other projects and for water projects. So I can see where he's coming from. And yes, Brian.
Anyway, I just might add a bit of perspective on that too, Mayor. I think you're 100% right in that the water quality issues for downtown villages such as Southampton and East Hampton and Sag Harbor are, the water quality is their #1 most acute issue. And I think if you look at even the difference of our seal that has our farmland on it, is important. Southampton's, Village of Southampton's seal has Lake Agawam, which is the #1 most polluted lake probably in the county. And so they definitely have a vested interest in lifting that cap, which would then, who knows what that cap would get lifted to, 100%, 25, 100? You don't know.
It is a very important issue that we're all dealing with, and Sag Pond gets very polluted. So I think the idea is important, but I also think if it has to be, I don't know.
I'm not against funding water projects, but I just think if they're going to, drastically change where the focus is going to be for CPF funding, that they should do it legitimately by having voters approve that.
I agree.
No, you're just saying to get what you want in another way
Uh,
through the
I
voters.
just don't, I think it's dishonest.
Don, how do they calculate the 20%?
I guess 20% of the
Sagaponic.
revenues raised each year.
For the
Of
township?
Sagaponic.
No,
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 the
village.
township.
no, it's for the whole ball wax.
Oh.
We don't, village doesn't get any of these funds.
It's open through the
It goes
town.
through the town.
Right.
The towns have, each town has its own CPF fund. Revenues that come in from the transfer tax.
Yeah.
And then that 20% is on the overall for that
I
township,
don't,
but would be shared by, if there was 3
I don't know
projects.
maybe Brian knows, I don't know the mechanics, whether it's what is raised each year
Yeah,
or whether what has been accumulated.
yeah, it's the restriction of the total fund expenditure cannot be more than 20% of water quality now.
And it's,
So it's the whole fund.
Yep, the whole fund.
and it would be not per project, it would be perhaps 10 projects.
Correct.
Or
But to the maximum of 20%.
And right now, historically, in recent years, the funds has been very high because many properties during the COVID couple months changed hands.
It's at record highs. I understand.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Well, it's always high.
I mean, just talking about like, for example, Sag Pond, in order to get approval to open it. And I don't know if this, we have to do a biological study, right? Lodi?
Oh, is that kind of?
Right, if we want to be able to modify the permit we already have for opening Sag Pond, we need to do a biological study, and it'd be interesting if that could be funded by the CPF, if Sagaponic doesn't get enough of those monies already. I don't know, I'm just, I don't know if that's relevant to this conversation.
We don't really get a status report for the village of CPF funding,
Right,
and where and for what it's been distributed. So this is really all at the town level. We are assuming somebody is minding the store in terms of the 20% annual allocation, and how much of it is used and where it goes.
right.
And for all I know, the current studies that have been done by the this guy at Southampton College, I don't know whether that has been funded by the town or not.
Right.
So Mayor Larson just was looking for support.
He was, and the window support may even have closed for all I know. And I suspect, but I won't venture any opinions. I think most villages have supported this.
I don't have a list.
I mean,
Yeah.
very, other than us here on the South Fork, North Fork is a lot different. There's still a lot more land to be preserved and it's a lot cheaper. But I would think pretty much all of the villages here would support that because they are where all the density is. Including North Haven.
And do we in Sagaponic specifically have many more areas to preserve? Like big lots that could possibly be preserved?
Yeah, there are a number, but I mean,
Well, I know
I
there's
could
some
probably
big ones, yeah.
list them on my fingers.
Right.
But there are a lot of money. Topping Horse Farm, for example, is a lot of money.
Right, right, right.
And there still are a number of lots. Pearl Binder lot is one of them. and Mr. Jesus,
Wexler.
no. My memory is just failing me.
Oh, on Hedges Lane, the.
No, on
the-
Daniel's Lane, who's the big one?
Goldman.
No,
Goldman,
no, the Hummer guy.
Oh, Renner.
Oh,
Renner,
Renner-
oh,
Renner's- Renner's-
Daniels and Fairfield. I know what
There's the other relative of the Fosters on the corner of Daniels Lane and Fairfield Pond Lane.
Julie Foster, I forgot her married name, yeah.
Oh, and Hedges property,
Mm.
corner of Town Line Road and Parsonage.
Wexler on the same name.
So, I mean, there are a few, but there's not any large tracts.
And we've been very we've been very successful, Don, over the years, getting CPF funds for large and the smaller 9-acre segments and stuff like that, haven't we?
Yes.
I
Yes.
thought there were some years that would have two things going and they were both approved, kind of thing.
Well, we've had some small ones and some big ones, like
Yeah.
the Foster property on right next door.
Yeah,
The more recently, the Hopping Corner by the railroad tracks and North Sag Main, the Jerry Bauer property. Which-
and those smaller 9-10 acre ones are just as important as the big ones, I think.
Well, some are. I mean, they're.
Yeah, it depends where they're located, I guess.
I'd love it if really about 5 or 6 parcels left that I'd really like. Wish we could get in that program, assuming that the sellers are interested.
Mhm.
At any rate, let's take a vote on what we should tell Mayor Larson in terms of whether or not we support this change to putting no restriction on how much funds go for water quality.
Start down
Bill, yes or no?
Carrie, what did you say?
I said I'm undecided. Start down there.
Oh,
Okay. So,
I think it's a big jump from going from 20%, which I think is reasonable, to unlimited. And I don't know whether this committee or whatever it is has in mind a figure, 50% or 30%,
it's unrestricted.
unrestricted. I think that's a little ambiguous. I think the 20% is fair right now.
You know?
I don't know what's fair. I think that the water quality is important. So, I mean, I think I would support it, especially, I just think, the water quality is important, and so is our open space. But I think it might become more and more important. So I don't disagree with you about having a referendum though, and having people vote on it, but I do think that it would be
Well,
good.
specifically, what is being asked for is our support for the state legislature taking any restrictions on the use of these funds off in terms of water quality. So that will be either have to say we support or don't support.
Or having to get a referendum to get what you want. more than the 20%.
Well, we can say that we can, if we decide, no, we don't want to approve the use of 100% without a referendum, we can say that too.
I would like to go with what you just said, the idea that we would like to see the referendum in order to approve it. That allows the importance of water as well as preserving land and be done by the bigger group of voters, which is important too.
So you would say, you would say, no, we'd like to have a referendum on this.
Correct.
I agree with that.
Okay. Then can I say there's a consensus that we want a referendum before?
No modifications,
People support.
no modifications to the cap except by referendum.
Okay. Finally, I have down here, and I want to stress, we have an option here to do nothing. Talking about encumbrances on Town Line Road. And just to review the history here, recall that late last fall, or maybe it was even in the winter, we had some residents who wanted us to permit parking for residents only on the west side of Town Line Road between Daniels Lane and the beach
Sagaponic.
in Sagaponic, on the Sagaponic side of Town Line Road. And at the same time, we had a more vociferous delegation of homeowners from Town Line Road opposing any change in the parking regulations there, claiming that it would be unsafe and it would destroy the character of their neighborhood. We are getting to the point where we are getting on the cusp of another summer season. And one of the things that we discussed as a possibility, I kind of favor, if you'll recall, when the residents came here to protest increasing the level of traffic there, they also cited in support of what they were saying, the fact that they felt it was unsafe for them at the present time, for children or pedestrians to use the west side of the street just for pedestrian passage or baby carriages or bicycles, because there was just no room there now, and that posed a safety hazard if the status quo were kept. I think, again, this speak personally here. Personally, I am not in favor of having parking on that side of that road. It's an established neighborhood. And if we did allow parking on that side of the road, it would definitely change the character of that neighborhood. Throughout the village, we have during the season, no parking zones on streets in the village that are proximate to the beach. Some not even that proximate to the beach, but Sand Dune Court, I forget the name of the road that goes off to that to the Bird Whistle subdivision. Off south,
Sag
south
Pond
of
Sag Pond.
Sag Pond Court. And and elsewhere. And in fact, not much, but some of the requests to allow parking on the west side of Town Line Road came from residents of Erica's Lane, who have a seasonal no parking situation on their street. So I'm not in favor of allowing parking at the moment. But that's just me personally. But I do believe that we do have right of way on that side of the road that neighbors have been encroaching on, putting in boulders, stakes, landscaping, hedges, fencing. And I think that we should have those residents clear on their properties, any encumbrances that they put on there within 10 feet from the edge of the pavement. And to ensure that that does not just create parking spaces, which it would, that we keep the signs on the road prohibiting parking, and that we instruct our assigned town police officer on duty during the summer months to check during daylight hours and particularly on weekends, twice a day, to go over to Town Line Road and to try and let people know that we're enforcing the no parking zone on that side of the street. But the starters would be, we should notify the homeowners in advance that we would like them to clear the encumbrances that they put within 10 feet of the pavement.
I have a question.
Yep,
Why do you want to move the encumbrances?
so that people can walk there. And if, as they claim, there is no room for emergency vehicles to get to the beach when there's been overcrowding on the East Hampton side, that there is.
So it's encumbering people walking?
Pardon?
It's encumbering people walking. the things that they
Certainly,
put out
some are hedges.
there. Oh, I see.
Some are huge hedges and boulders. If you had to veer slightly off the road, you could potentially have an accident. There also is a huge sand pile at the end that a resident from Sagaponic put in to stop people from parking near his driveway. And so hence, now you can't turn around depending on the size of your vehicle in that section, which is a horrible thing to do for emergency vehicles and all that stuff. That junk should be cleaned up or removed. Don, did you, in what we're discussing now, we're not discussing talking with East Hampton to return to the policy that our stickers would work on the east side?
As you know, I did that once. I talked to the East Hampton Town Supervisor
Again.
about the change of status that had occurred on that side of the road. And that could he issue, or allow to be issued a certain number of residents, Sagaponic residents, only stickers on that side of the road. I'm hesitant to do that again. He said no. He said the reason we restricted it was because we have increased demand there with COVID, and a lot of people have moved out here. So there's much more pressure for us to provide parking spaces on our side of the road. I hate to go and just we have no leverage whatsoever, particularly when he says, would say, look at the map. You have adequate room to put parking on your side of the street. If you really feel that strongly that your residents need parking there, why don't you put it in yourself?
So you're separating the two situations in this conversation. We're talking just about the encumbrances that are blocking.
I
Emergency vehicles.
would like to respond
and-
to the complaints by the residents as part of this conversation, that there already is a hazard down there. And both in terms of pedestrian traffic and more importantly, for any emergency vehicles. We put pictures up on the board of one Saturday down there where it was just chaos. There was no passage to the beach, vehicular passage to the beach. And the East Hampton Town Police refused to even go there, saying they were just too busy elsewhere.
And we can't ticket them.
No, we have no jurisdiction
Well, we're
on that side of the
between a
road.
rock and a hard place here.
We generally
Well,
are.
some of those pictures, we could have ticketed our size technically, but there also were two huge parties approved by East Hampton Town one of those weekends on their side, which created parking everywhere potentially possible, I guess. But the first step of importance is safety, and the encumbrances, some of them are kind of like sharp and jagged and unpleasant. So I think we should make sure that people can always walk on the grass verge, or at least if an emergency vehicle needed to swing and turn around and return someone to the hospital or somewhere else, that it was potential.
We didn't just get there, even if they get back all the way up.
So,
But as I say, I'll do whatever you want me to do.
I agree with you. I would do exactly that.
Bill?
I don't see how we can expect or trust the people that live there to remove their encumbrances without surveying a 10-foot stretch from the edge of the public
We
highway.
know we have at least, we don't need a surveyor. We have aerial photographs showing that we have a right of way of at least 17 feet.
Right.
From-
We have plenty of room, I understand that, but without running a bulldozer down there and just taking it out,
Well, we could do
whatever's
that.
there, I don't see how we can get them to do it. I mean, they're major encumbrances down there.
I know that we're gonna have to ask them.
Like, for example, the pile of sand. down
We can send a bulldozer down there. I don't know if we can build them for it.
If possible, I don't know about charging them back. I mean, we do anything to clear a right of way. The obstacle comes up a lot. Maybe something is an exception. We think about our driveway aprons. If they've got that in there, you know, removing stones and boulders is one thing, but potentially like a Belgian block driveway apron might be something else. But that really shouldn't impede.
The Belgian block driveway extension is not going to impede pedestrian or emergency vehicle traffic. Some of these boulders might, trees and hedges definitely will, fences and gates
your
definitely.
gates and fences, you're right.
Some of the trees there's a few trees that are quite
Well,
significant.
I'm not talking about removing the, old growth trees. You can slither around. That they'll,
Okay.
An ambulance might not be able to.
No.
So maybe a letter to neighbors defining what might be objectionable obstructions to pedestrian traffic.
I think well, I don't think, all right, we can send one of our village employees or our building inspector to list for each property, there are what, 20 properties? I think they're less.
Actually, there are more than 20.
Are there?
Yeah.
Well, 30. You just, you can see what needs to be removed and to just make a list. I think,
Some of those encumbrances are part of the history of the area,
like,
trees and the hedges. If you get I mean, I have to go down there and look again, but
well, the hedges are part of the history of the area. The hedges were planted, they may
well,
be,
maybe history's the
maybe
wrong
20
word.
years
The
old.
ambiance, I guess, is what I'm thinking of.
Well, then they can move the hedges and to be on their property.
We removed, and I don't know the street number exactly, on Hedges Lane. Was it 2 years ago?
Well, we asked the homeowner.
Right, but we had it removed
He
by request.
did, and he replanted it.
No, we didn't. We did, Donna.
Or we replanted
We
it.
removed those hedges.
Okay,
We asked him to, and he did not.
right.
Several.
Okay, then I am correct. So because it was so dangerous and I think with all the renovations we've had on those, that subdivision down at the end there that had, I'm gonna call it 1/10 acre lots, but the negative footprint lots, the skinny tiny little cottages used to be on. Many of those hedges are new. As part of the renovations. And remember, one of those houses got a pool in the front yard. And of course they needed to put a hedge in. But they didn't need to put the hedge in on the edge of the road. Plus the one we had 2 years ago that we removed, aren't we liable if somebody can't see around a hedge or can't see or can't get a emergency vehicle in if we ignore this?
Theoretically, we are liable. The people put boulders in the right of way. And
The
some
boulders are
some
really are ridiculous because,
we
yeah,
are liable.
and that pile of sand is just cruel because people can innocently try to back up a foot trying to go get back down the opposite side of the road and get stuck in it depending on how high their vehicle is. And it's a huge one, pile of sand.
We've widened Daniels, we're gonna widen Hedges. I don't understand why we can't just widen Town Line Road on our side for 10 foot for the purposes of foot traffic. Doesn't have to be, and pave it and go straight down with it and right to the telephone poles. Or I think some of those poles are closer to the road than, and mark and have no parking.
We also discussed that there maybe at some point, and we didn't have a real spot, but remember, Bill, we discussed that if they had a way of walking down our residence to use the beach, but park their cars somewhere else, and we referred to in Daniels or, we had discussed that other option. And it didn't necessarily mean that if we opened the beach, if people could walk down there and not fall on a boulder or get around the hedge right up to the edge of the road, we could park limited people in a different location somehow. We just hadn't explored that idea. Maybe Bill Tilton brought it up too, about
And then jitney them to the beach?
Well, you hate to give up an option. What bothers me is people were using this beach up until a year and a half ago, when all of a sudden East Hampton Town cops started ticketing our residents, and they weren't ticketing them. That was not the agreement that we
Well, I thought
had.
They weren't going down there because they were too busy.
That night, the bad night, they didn't. Our guys turned up, but
The other change was they have now made it East Hampton permit holders only year round. It used to be just during the season.
this is also somewhat of a ricochet, don't you think, Don, due to the windmill issues at Beach Lane?
You lost me.
The wind things.
The wind farm issues at Beach Lane.
I don't see what that has to do with anything.
I think their community board in Waynscott went and was upset about Beach Lane and the potential limitations
I am
with
definitely
beach.
upset.
And I thought this is how also that influenced Mr. Van Scoyac to change the agreement that we had functioned under, that people from our town village could park with a proper permit on the west side.
He didn't, I don't think that one had anything to do with the other.
Makes
I
sense.
think he's more concerned just about irritating Waynscott residents more than they already were with the wind farm, with the airport. What they felt was just East Hampton Town dumping things in Waynscott.
Well, if we're only looking today at encumbrances on Town Line Road, I think the encumbrances, if we get those removed, it will allow us to make a better decision to visually see what we even have there.
I think we should all go down there together and check it out. And discuss it.
Well, we all can't, but we can
We're
go.
not allowed to meet as a group except in a public meeting. We can go in what, 3s or 2s?
Do drive-bys.
Well, look, we have aerials that are pretty up to date.
Now I gotta be there.
And quite close focus. Anybody of us, I've done it. You can walk down both sides of Town Line Road in 15-minute round trip and see what's there. And if we are going to do something about it for this season, we definitely should be prepared to initiate it at the March meeting. So I would advocate that each of you, and when you come back, you too, Lisa, since you'll be here for the March 9th meeting, walk down Town Line Road and just take a look at what's there and what's within 10 feet of the pavement, say 3 paces off the pavement, which is what we would be asking homeowners to remove. Now, we can ask homeowners all we like to remove them. They may not choose to remove them, in which case we may have to do it. But at least we're giving them the option to do it, and to do it in a way that if it's including plant materials, that they can relocate them if they want, without us just sending them all to a landfill. We did make that request to people, if you recall, on Sag Main Street in terms of the pavement, and a lot of people just voluntarily cut back their driveways and reinstall their Belgian block. I think at least we should give them notice. So that if we decide we've got to send a bulldozer in there to just sort of clean it up, it shouldn't come as much of a surprise.
Well, the liability issue is a good reason, for sure.
Bill, you would like to say something?
Bill Tillotson. The board has a fiduciary responsibility to protect the assets of the village for the residents. And letting those people maintain encroachments on the village property, I think is wrong. And, throw it out of there. The most recent zoning board case, I specifically looked to see if the applicant had anything out in the on the public property, and they did not, which was nice. And I think the village has surveys of a lot of this stuff. I mean, it's very easy to go down there and see where people have the corners and they have the hedge on the line, which is, I guess acceptable. And then you can see there's a lot of stuff which is way, way out. I mean, down towards the end, some guys got a berm with trees on it. It's very old, but the public has a right to use those places.
I think Bill is right, having worked with architectural board and zoning board, many of those lots of the, we're going to just call it 30 lots because we're not counting it today, but have been before zoning and Bill, the architectural board in the last 14, 15 years. And many of the tiny ones at the end, as part of that subdivision that gave us indirectly the 17 feet back in the 1920s, have gotten zoning help, relief, because of their negative lots, building lots. And I just think that denying the Sagaponic side of Town Line Road to be able to even walk safely down the road, least of all the emergency vehicles being able to pull in, because when they park on the East Hampton side, some of the places there, the hedges are within a foot or two of the road there. The people are parked out in the road to go to Town Line Beach on the East Hampton side. So our side with the rocks and all this other stuff, it is impossible safety wise to get down that street. And I have walked it, and it would be wonderful to be able to have, a nice walking spot to go in without having to, worry about a boulder or going out into the road when the hedge is literally almost on the pavement.
May I comment on this?
Hey, Elliot.
Yeah. May I comment on this?
You're a resident.
Okay, yeah, I live on Erica's Lane and I use that Town Line Beach frequently, and it's a very popular beach.
Hey, Elliot, just for the record, Elliot Mizell.
Yeah, Elliot Mizell, resident of 107 Erica's Lane. And incidentally, though, I don't like to pull rank and use office. I am the chairman of the zoning board in Sagaponic. I have heard numerous applications for variances with respect to those properties. I'm sympathetic to those generally because they are very small pre-existing parcels. We've given them variances for parking in the front lots. We've given them side lot variances. Many of them have recaptured what was a mapped but unopened street, Sagaponic Street, behind them, giving them substantial additional land. I think that many children, particularly during the summer, of course, there are many, many people down at that beach, and I do think it's dangerous when East Hampton is parked and they park almost out to the middle of the yellow line because there really isn't adequate off-street parking there. You're down to perhaps one lane, cars coming and going, dogs and children and bicycles. I really think it does a disservice to the village, whether or not Sagaponack residents have the ability to park at Town Line Road. I agree with Lisa completely. They really should have the ability to safely walk down the Sagaponack side. If there is some reluctance to have a confrontation between Sagaponack Village officials and Sagaponack Village residents, since we have an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Southampton, which I assume is valid for Town Line Road for the maintenance of the road, I don't know who does arrange for parking spaces or the maintenance of the shoulders of the road and the widening. But wouldn't this be something that the town of Southampton would do at our bequest? And I certainly concur. I think that as much as reasonable should be taken back within the public right of way for public use, and trying not to necessarily take everything that the village is entitled to, if that would be overly disruptive of landscaping perhaps of some of the other residents. But certainly those rocks, which are sharp and jagged and stick right out into the road. And sometimes you have to jump over them when there's a car coming down the road.
You're right.
Elliot, there is no intermunicipal agreement affecting Town Line Road whatsoever. And in terms of highway maintenance, it has just kind of been, I don't think there's anything in writing since, for at least the last 50 years, there's been a gentleman's agreement between the two town highway departments, I think. I don't think the town boards have been involved in this at all, where East Hampton Town maintains the road, both sides of it, between the ocean and Montauk Highway. And Southampton Town maintains the road north of Montauk Highway. If under our intermunicipal agreement with the town highway department, we are theoretically, if there has to be repaving done on our side of the road, we would be responsible for doing that. Any widening of the roadway in itself would be the responsibility of the village to do it. It would be the responsibility of the town to maintain it. But the town would have no say in whether or not we widen the road or put more pavement on it or put a sidewalk in, which I'm not eager to do, but it's something that we could do. So we're on our own in terms of that. And we have no say what goes on the other side of the yellow line. If the road needs repaving, north and south, I'm sure we can agree with East Hampton on who does what. But if things, I think it'd be stupid to just try and repave one half of the road. And I think we'd have to do that jointly. But as far as I'm concerned, East Hampton Town is currently doing the maintenance on that road, restriping it when it needs it and so forth. But I'd like to leave it, if we spend enough time on this, I would like each of you before the March 9th meeting to go up and down Town Line Road. I would like our building inspector to walk or drive down that road and mark on those aerial maps that we have what encumbrances he believes should be removed within that within an area of 10 feet from the edge of pavement.
Is 10 enough?
Pardon?
Is 10 enough?
I think 10 is enough for passage. and for an emergency vehicle on its own. And it's equivalent of one lane on a town road. And we've got some driveways off Daniels Lane that aren't even 10 feet wide. And common driveways.
Yeah,
Maybe we should say 12 feet, and then when they have a problem with that, we can say, okay, we'll do 10 feet. Or maybe not.
Well, all right, that's a strategy we could discuss, but I want you to be prepared at the March meeting to answer the simple question: should we do something about clearing a right of way on that side of the road, or should we do nothing and let sleeping dogs lie? Okay.
Well, the liability issue is, we'll answer it for all of us, in theory.
We shall see.
Okay.
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 Right.
Gas powered leaf blower. We expected to have a crowd here. We don't have a crowd here. We have Michael Slifka, who was at our last meeting, who made a presentation. And I want to recap where I think we got to at the end of the last meeting, which was that the board should seriously consider banning gas-powered leaf blowers between, was it May 20th or May 15th to September,
It was May 20th to September.
May 20th to September 20th, and restrict the hours of use and the periods outside of the ban period from, I can't remember, was it 8 to 5 on,
That was just Friday.
that was on Friday,
8 to 6, Monday through Thursday,
8 to 6, Monday through Thursday, and what?
9 to
9
1
to
Saturday.
5 on,
Oh, 9 to 5 Friday.
on Friday, and,
8 to 5.
and
8 to 5
And-
on Friday.
not,
8 to 5
and,
on Friday.
9 to 1, was it on Saturday?
Correct.
And that this should be viewed by everybody as possibly a transitional measure. I think the board was in agreement that, we wanted to, what's the point of banning them all the year except for October or something? Most of us are not relaxing by our pools in the off months, and the noise of the blowers is much less annoying if you're indoors with the windows closed, rather than if you're sitting outside and getting this sound. Michael, do you have anything you want to add to this?
I'm pleased that the board is willing to consider this measure. Personally, I feel that we should be as aggressive as possible, but I feel that this is a good transition. I'm here in support of Henry. Henry, do you have something you'd like to say on this point?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Henry Weisberg. I live at 521 Sag Main, so right across from the post office, more or less. Just by way of background, I have to say that I live in a portion of Sagaponack, which has a lot of beautiful gardens and beautiful lawns, but going along with that is an incredible amount of noise. And I think it is worse than, or it is more penetrating than only outside noise. When I stand in my living room, even with the windows shut, but I still hear a lot of noise, and most particularly, internal combustion engine leaf blowers, which are a particularly pernicious piece of equipment. So I made a proposal, which you should have. I submitted it in November, unaware that there were other proposals and discussions about this. And my proposal goes a little bit further. First of all, I would completely ban from some date in 2022 internal combustion engine leaf blowers, which are, and you can read about it, lots of other municipalities and villages all across the country have banned them outright. It's a two-stroke engine. It is, particularly penetrating in terms of sound. It is particularly awful in terms of pollution, and there are lots of replacements for it in terms of electric and similar other pieces of equipment which achieve the same result. So I have a particular focus on the internal combustion engine two-stroke leaf blower. More generally, I would, and I understand that this goes a lot further than what you've considered, I would restrict leaf blowers to certain periods of the year only, just again, because it's a particularly noisy piece of equipment, being early spring and late fall. I probably don't feel as strongly about that as getting rid of the internal combustion engine leaf blowers. More generally and more broadly, I do think the village needs to restrict all gardening equipment for some portion of the week. So my proposal, I wouldn't change the hours, whatever they may be, Monday to Friday. I would eliminate, any use of gardening equipment on Sundays and on Saturdays after 1 o'clock. I mean, we just need to have some peace. And I can tell you that, and maybe this is climate change, I don't know what it is, but, I've lived in Sagaponack for 30 years. It's gotten a lot worse. And now, from about mid-March to mid-November, there isn't a daylight hour, not one daylight hour where I don't, in downtown Sagaponack, don't hear somebody's gardening equipment. And I don't think that's the way Sagaponack should be. So I think that in terms, the hour restrictions are extremely modest. It's really just a day and a half out of the weekend. But what I certainly feel most strongly about is the two-stroke engine leaf blower, which, as I said, is a particularly pernicious piece of equipment. I know from my own youth working for gardeners that leaf blowers don't last very long. And so the gardeners are replacing these things every year or two anyway. And the next time they replace it, they can replace it with one that isn't a two-stroke internal combustion engine. So it's very much what you've started to do, maybe taking it a little bit further.
Thank you.
Any of you want to speak to this?
I agree with everything you're saying.
Okay,
I have a
so
problem.
you want to ban them entirely?
I do. I think they're very,
I'm not willing to support that
I have a
at this
comment.
time.
Don.
Yeah,
I prefer Village of East Hampton's dates for landscapers, June 1st to Labor Day. As opposed to May 20th to September 20th.
why?
It lets people get organized for their Memorial Weekend, and nobody's here the day after Labor Day.
I am.
I am.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I think East Hampton's dates, I pulled East Hampton's dates when I proposed from their their regs, and I think it's May 20th to September 20th.
That's the
No.
town.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, I see. There's a difference between the town and the village.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I would advocate being as aggressive as possible here. We
And-
all need some peace and quiet, I think.
Can start slow and rev it up. And also, do we need an emergency clause as East Hampton Village also has?
Brian, you want to address that?
Yeah, we talked about that. You guys already have an exemption for homeowners, private personal use or tenant personal use is allowed. Sometimes they have exceptions for emergencies and those kind of declared situations. But if the mayor declares a state of emergency for a hurricane or something and needs it, that declaration suspends all those regulations anyway.
Okay,
So
we
it should
don't
be
need
go.
it.
And if I could note, if you might want to look at my proposed legislation, because I've dealt with all this, and in my proposal, there is the mayor can announce a temporary suspension.
Under
It's in
New
the
York,
code. they
yeah,
said.
New York State executive law, on the declaration of emergency by the mayor, it suspends that section.
Okay,
What about homeowners who are working on their own property on their day off or et cetera, which we did address that within our construction part, didn't we, Don?
Yes.
Because that would concern me.
So other village codes, do they exempt homeowners?
Yes. Generally.
except for North Haven, I think.
Correct. North Haven is a complete ban.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Sag Harbor exempts personal use. We only have that for landscapers. Saturday, Sunday, and all other holidays, all people can use it, property owners. Saturday and Sunday, I'm sorry, Sunday only in the town of East Hampton is property owners only. So there are some exceptions for property owners.
All right, let's go around here. We'll try and get some consensus. How do you feel about property owners? Should they be excluded or should they be included? Bill?
I think property owners should be excluded.
Okay. Marilyn, I assume you do not. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
meaning they can blow their leaves.
I mean, with electric. most-
Meaning they can't blow their
homeowners are gonna
leaves
use
with
gas
the
power.
gas plow.
They're too big.
I'm not worried about
Oh, meaning they can't? You have to specify more on what you're asking.
I'm asking whether you want to exclude homeowners from whatever ban we apply, or whether you don't, whether you would to be included in it. You can't be more specific than
We
that.
exclude them in the ban, that means they can.
That means they can,
That's what I said.
yes.
I agree with that.
So you're
So
excluding
you and-
homeowners?
I'm
You and
excluding
Bill
homeowners
believe
at the moment with
homeowners
Bill. Bill and I
should be
agree
excluded from this, from the ban.
for the moment.
That for the legislation that we are going to ultimately adopt.
And Marilyn, you were in favor of banning homeowners as well?
it. Yes. because
Okay.
It's
Lisa,
bad for their health. I'm looking after them.
Okay, so
Lisa,
I'm going with Bill and Carrie that homeowners would be allowed to, depending on, to attend their property at any time.
at all hours,
Yeah,
at all times of year.
that's
Well,
right.
no, I don't agree with that.
Oh, okay, then what? do you
Oh, okay, so we're,
agree to?
I mean, even Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, I don't agree with this.
well, we are allowing homeowners to do construction on their property when on any day of the week. Why would we tell a homeowner who maybe has worked 6 days a week and they're only there on a particular day to even do something that they can't ever do anything?
So the 6 days excludes Sunday?
We can exclude anything we want or include anything we want. So it's, what do you think?
I think
we should
Sunday
do?
should be a quiet day regardless of
All
who
right.
wants to blow their leaves.
So then the ban would be complete on Sundays, no homeowners,
And holidays.
that's Sundays and holidays.
Sundays
Okay.
and holidays,
All right.
nobody.
Otherwise, a homeowner can do it whatever hour of the day they want.
Don't we have
Any day.
noise rules?
Yeah, but we can't enforce them. We
We can, it's
we
just a little
can.
more difficult. We can.
Well,
Because the gun.
Because code enforcement is
Actually,
trained.
we can't without a noise meter.
Code enforcement has noise meters.
All right.
It's a stretch, but it's there for us. And has been used.
For the most part, it's unenforceable. And even if they come here and they get here on a drive up from Hampton Bays in the middle of summer along Montauk Highway, even if they get here, if the leaf blower is not being in use while they're here, they can't do anything.
And why are we voting?
And what?
Why are we voting? We can't do anything.
Can I say something?
I didn't say we can't do anything. I'm saying enforcement is difficult.
Decibel basis.
Okay.
On the
All
side.
right, I got
It's
you.
easy enough to tell if somebody's using it.
Yes.
Now you can hold your phone up to the
Yeah,
code enforcement.
okay, I
officer.
got it.
Yes, Bill.
The village, nobody requires anybody to use a gas powered leaf blower. I mean, I think they should be banned at least part of the year. But I also believe in community activism. In a way, if you want to stir things up, you talk to your neighbors and say, don't have those guys back with the blowers again. I mean, this can stop instantly. Everybody can say, the guy paying the bill can tell people, don't do that. And everything will be silent from today, from forever. I think it's, get to know your neighbors. Everybody here puts up a hedge and they don't talk to a goddamn person anywhere, and they want the village to come in and legislate something and have the police show up. Talk to your neighbors, get it done right now. Anyway, be an activist.
Hey, thanks, Bill. My neighbor is Ira Renner. Could you go talk to him for me?
I'll go see him.
A lot of neighbors aren't here, they don't use their house very much, they have no idea what's going on at their house.
And they may want the noise. If they aren't there,
Yes.
they probably will.
But if you explain it to them, I mean.
Also, if I can note, I think,
All right.
there are a limited number of, the big gardening people who come in and do most of the work. And if you were to adopt this, whether it's the hour restrictions or the restrictions on equipment, you communicate to those guys and word will get around. I don't think anybody's really thinking that we're going to need the police to do this.
Well, we use them.
The restrictions we put in place last year were very effective. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but Sunday is dead quiet and Saturday afternoon, it's really transformed and the holidays now are quiet. The commercial operations have respected the regulations. So I feel if we enact these, they will be respected. And the idea is to transition everybody over to electric. It's not to say, okay, you can't use a blower on your property, but use an electric blower for the obvious reasons, the pollution and the noise. So that's where I was going with this. And that's why I was advocating a complete ban on the two-stroke engine thing. And I believe also, well, I don't know, did we include hedge trimmers on this as well, I think, in the regulations?
We are talking about leaf blowers.
Okay,
Last year's.
We're not talking about weed eaters. We're not talking about hedge clippers. We're not talking about
Chainsaws.
chainsaws.
All
I'm
of which,
sorry,
all of which,
I'm really, sorry. I'm really sensitive to the noise issue. I'm just trying to be, make for a peaceful and quiet environment here. I'm sorry, Henry.
I was just gonna say, the problem with the leaf blower is the guys come to use it every week. On this, on the same property. The hedge trimmer, for example, is only once or twice a year, on a particular piece of hedge. So it's quieter and it's much less of an issue, I think.
All right, so I'm trying to lead us, but nobody's following.
Don, just to clarify.
The sound is on.
On the enforcement, what happened last year when you changed the code, after it was adopted, what I did is my office sent out an email to not every single landscaper in the world, but those that we were familiar with in the area, sent them the new code, sent it to the police, and they enforced it that way. If somebody was working on a day that they weren't supposed to be, they would tell them they can, and they did shut down a couple of sites when we first, enforced the law there.
Did it
So
get sent to the homeowners too?
we did not send it to the homeowners. We sent it to the people that are out there with their leaf blowers.
The commercial businesses.
Exactly,
Right.
the landscapers.
I think from experience in enforcing this in other villages, the issue is clarity on the law. The more fine point we put on it, the more likely we're gonna catch someone outside. That if we cut it with a broad stroke, as the other villages are, Southampton, Town of East Hampton, they understand May 20 to September 20. And the interesting point, that was an interesting point I didn't actually consider, Mayor, from Michael, about that electric could still be used during that summer season. And that was the experience in the village of Southampton.
I'd like to be able to give some specific instructions to our attorney in drafting the law. So for the moment, can we have a consensus of May 20 to September 20?
No.
Yes.
No, okay, we don't have consensus on that. Can we have a consensus? What would you like there to be
June
consensus
1st to
on?
Labor Day?
I don't know why that extra week in May is so important to you.
It seems to make more sense to me.
Well, okay, put that up to a vote. And to Labor Day, why is
I don't know,
An
little baby
extra-
steps is kind
an
of
extra day.
theoretically what I'm talking about, instead of everything all at once, just do a little at a time
No,
and
I don't
then.
think it's
you get to
everything,
it, yeah.
Carrie. I mean, some people are having bans permanently.
Well, that's a ways off for us.
I think so, but I don't think having it start a week earlier and ending 10 days later should be a game breaker.
I don't either.
Okay. We have agreed that nothing on Sunday, homeowner or non-homeowner, nothing on Sunday. On Saturdays, now we've got a 9 to 1 where it's permitted. But not in, now, you want to let homeowners do it anytime they want in the summer, during the ban period, except Sundays, or,
That sounds good to me.
okay, so
I can live with that.
a homeowner is exempted from everything but Sundays
Okay.
And holidays.
and holidays.
Well, what's a holiday?
Federal
Federal
holiday.
federal holiday.
Federal.
Uh,
Be specific now.
Do you need anything else for this, Brian?
What were the dates?
I am proposing, and I know you're opposing, from May 20th to September 20th.
I
Is
think
that
we
all
should-
right with you, Bill?
That's good with me, but I think we should include for that period that they are allowed to use them, restrictions on the hours that they can use it.
Oh, yeah, we'll not, restrict the hours.
Right,
All right, then the homeowner would be bound by, we'll have a separate thing for homeowners, a separate section for homeowners, where they can do it from 8 to 5 or 6,
I think
8 to 6 on Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5 on Fridays, and 9 to 1 on Saturdays.
Friday should be 8 to 5.
8 to 5 on Fridays.
8, oh, you
Same.
didn't want it done.
Yeah.
No, no, 5 was the changing number, not
Saturday,
6.
9 to 1, 8 to 6, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 5 on Friday.
Correct.
Homeowners restricted to those same timeframes.
To those timeframes
Homeowners and
all
landscapers.
year round.
The current proposal is May 20th to 9/20.
Were we gonna vote on those dates?
Yes, we're gonna vote on that. Lisa,
Yes,
you're furthest away.
Yeah.
Are you in favor of 5:20 to 9:20 ban period? Or would you want it
oh,
short?
5:20, I have to see it to 9:20. I'm okay with that.
Bill, I know
Yes.
you're not in favor of a ban, but if there is a ban, what time frame would you prefer it? to
I
be?
think, I have to say that May 20th to September 20th, I would accept, I agree with that, Dan, for commercial use.
Marilyn, since you
You know,
would like a ban
it's become a practice that
longer the better.
these guys that are mowing lawns in the wet, then they blow the whole property off.
Mm,
Blowers to get rid of the clumps of grass. I don't think that's necessary. Leaf blower should be used for leaves.
They can,
And by restricting those out, making those those dates, May to September, if you have wet grass and clumps, come later in the day, cut your lawn.
Or it's my feeling that if you really want to blow the grass, then use an electric.
Yeah,
blower. It's much more effective on grass than it is on wet leaves.
right.
Marilyn, you'll go for the
May
May
20th.
20th to September 20th. I vote for May 20th to September 20th. You don't agree with that? You
June
want-
1st to Labor Day.
Okay. I would say you're outvoted.
I guess I am.
Okay. So you put May 20th to September
I have
20th
that.
in the draft.
Yep.
Is there anything else that anybody here would like to include or exclude?
Just a point of clarification, homeowners are included in the ban during May 20th to 9/20, or homeowners may.
No, they may,
Excluded.
they do it, but within that hour timeframe.
Got it.
But they would have to adhere to the hours
The
that
hours.
are in our code.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
I was getting confused there.
And we'll see how that goes. And maybe next year at this time, we'll be having this conversation again, based on, what the results of this were or weren't.
I hate to do this.
Yeah.
So in February of 21, the board made an amendment to the code section last year, this time. And they included in the gas-powered leaf blower hours, they also included gas-powered hedge trimmers.
We're not doing that.
Hedge trimmers will remain as is, we're just pulling this out for leaf blowers.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think the rationale is that the hedge clipper is not used as frequently. And it's not even necessarily used on many properties.
Okay.
And it's not the same noise either.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We can't please everybody, but maybe we can at least give some pleasure. Okay, thank you. That brings us end of everything but financial, which we can do next month.
Next week.
Next week. We are in good shape for this year. If things hold as they have been, we will probably need $750,000 over our in surplus, which we can apply to the highway fund. I want to ask, because I'm confused. Have we decided to go ahead with Hedges Lane widen? Or have we, or all we've got decided is we're going ahead with Hedges Lane, but we have to decide if we want to widen it?
I think it's B, Don, because you're waiting for the survey, and the survey's been ordered. And so I thought you were going to
Wait till we get
wait to
that.
see what you have out there, and then decide.
You send an SOS out to
He's got the paperwork.
Peterman and tell him that we need the survey
Yes, I'll get a status for you.
next week, next month's meetings.
I think they're
Yeah.
surveying it.
I believe they're doing it right
I
now,
said the whole length of Hedges Lane has been guys
marked up.
all week.
Yeah, that's what I
I
heard.
think
So
they're
I'll
doing it.
get a status for you on that.
And I think when we discuss it in March, that we need to invite Jeff Tannenbaum's group and such, or at least make them aware that we are discussing it out of courtesy, like we today talked to the leaf blower people.
Happy to do so.
Pardon?
Happy to do it. And
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I was having trouble hearing you.
And anybody else who wants to weigh in. I mean,
Yeah.
we've heard from the Tannenbaum group. I wish we could get some of the people who have objected to the widening of the pass to come here if they're going to object to the wiring. Can you send a broadcast?
Well, I
No,
think,
wait till we get the survey.
right, and so we can do the emails to, well, unless you want to do to the whole village, I'll just send it out to whatever emails I have for the whole village
You know,
residents.
people haven't given us their email. They obviously are not necessarily interested in being included in anything.
Or do you just want to keep it to the Hedges Lane residents? Yeah,
No, as I think,
You should do the whole village in fairness, because we discussed it before as a whole village. And in all fairness, the survey might prove that in some spots we already have with, like we ended up using in Bridge Lane, you know, there could be options there we don't know without the survey.
exactly, and particularly, there are at least 2 areas of culverts that I know of.
Mhm.
And it may be that it's just gonna turn out to be so much of a hassle that we just don't widen the road in the 2 spaces where there are culverts, and we just put a sign up, and then cyclists, road narrows for 20 feet.
And you know, that's just what we did on Sag Main toward the end by the beach, because of the culvert that had just been fixed. Remember the one under the road there, as well as the wetness and you know, the cattails and all the stuff as you head down that road there. So at the end, we weren't able we chose not to do anything, and we weren't probably able to do it due to the wetness. So it doesn't hurt to say that you could do something depending on what the width is, and other parts not. You just need a survey to know what you have.
Well, hopefully that will show up and we can not have these surprise.
Well, we do know we don't have cattails on Hedges Lane,
we
and
don't-
we don't have the cattail sections like Sag Main.
Oh,
There are no cattails in Sagaponic.
No, I'm probably not calling them the right thing.
Horsetails. They're horsetails.
Horsetails, okay.
The last stand of cattails got eked out on
Yeah,
Sag Road, Sag Main Street, just down by the beach.
yeah.
Question on the water authority. Where are we standing with that? Where they were gonna go provide
I think that's that too.
water down Hedges Lane?
So where we stand on that is there was wording in the contract that you approved to sign that made it seem like we were gonna do all the repaving. So we asked them to change the wording so that it would read that we will do the final pavement, paving of the road. And so we're waiting for that to come back. And it should be here. We checked on it last week. As soon as we get it, they get their excavation permits and they can start it.
Okay, so we're gonna coordinate this, I would hope that we
That's what
don't put a new
That's correct.
surface on
No, that's correct.
hedges and all of a
That's
sudden,
exactly what we're trying to do.
yeah.
Yes, it's
And
exactly. what we're
I
trying to do.
believe Peterman said that he thought it was a good idea if we do the
If we do the
the
final
repair, the final repair.
final,
I think they were
exactly.
gonna give us
So-
some allowance for that.
$67,000, yes. So we are waiting for that document to come out. We're ready to go,
Okay,
ready to sign off on it. We just need
What
that
I would
document.
want to see if we can. If we do Hedges Lane, if we do it in the spring, we want to do it before the summer season.
Correct.
When would we have to start?
Okay, I'll get that answer.
And what is the timetable of the water authority for its project, the Hedges Lane portion of its project?
Rhodey, do you know, are they still only going to Fairfield Pond?
At this point in time, yes, that's all I have excavation permits for. There's 3, 2 in Hedges, 1 in Fairfield, and then Sag Store, and then the main coming up, Sag Main Street.
But the mains will be further down.
They're not putting a main all the way down Hedges.
No, I'm talking on Fairfield Pond.
It's going,
Once they go around the corner, they can keep going if somebody wants.
they can, yes, correct, Don.
And
Yeah,
why aren't they going, I mean, there's so many people on Hedges Lane that would want it. I was wondering why they didn't go down all Hedges Lane.
because not everybody responded.
Is,
I wonder-
So the only ones that responded, the ones that we got the excavation permits for are the ones that responded to. My understanding is everybody on Hedges Lane was asked whether or not they wanted to hook to it. And of course, it costs money, so you have to pay to get the line in front of your house.
Right.
If you're not gonna pay, they're not just gonna run the line.
so what is that, $1,000?
No, it's not.
10,000
No, it was
About
almost $25,000
per homeowner?
for this building because they ran the main down Montauk Highway.
And so how much is it?
It was $23,000 to $25,000 to hook up to the main. It's in my drawing.
I said no. They on Hedges
And I was
Lane.
We gotta get a
yours
plumber.
was done. Was that about what you had?
What?
Is that what about you had? Yeah.
I
You have it?
I think,
I have it.
I think Mr. Colley across the street from me said
Thanks
yes.
to Mr.
It
Renner.
was one of the ones. And
And
there
I
was another
know
one.
Jason, what's his name? My neighbor.
Plumber was a friend
Oh,
of
yes.
mine.
To be.
That's correct. That's the other one there. So those two.
So we
For the
have.
Michael Johnson.
You got it on right by your house.
Those two down, and that's, I think it's 95.
Not across from
Fairfield, so
you.
it's about halfway down. It's
Because
the
you're
lot,
not,
you know.
I mean, some of these.
Nothing on
houses are
parcel.
so soft road. You're right there, you're right. Plumber.
I mean, if I wanted, I
Never
could
did
get it off Sac Main Street.
True.
It's worth it.
But you know what?
Absolutely.
I don't want that.
Absolutely. Just, it's on, it's good, it's
I
right.
got my Poland Spring and my sprinkler system.
Electricity goes off.
Well,
Yep.
I
I
have
didn't even think about that, that's true. What you said.
Yeah.
Generator.
I feel
Before we get a generator.
oh, we've lost all of our attendees except for Lisa,
Oh, actually,
who looks like she's sleeping.
Elliot Mizell is still on. He's just got his microphone and his camera off,
Oh,
but everyone else has left.
all right. Does anybody have any reports they want to give or anything they want to add before we adjourn this meeting?
I
I
have
can, oh, sorry.
the piles of dirt that have been piled along the edge of the roads from the snow plows and stuff. Are we responsible to get, I mean, some of them are 6, 8 feet high. Piles of dirt, not snow, just
Really?
dirt, yeah. I think what happened, in my opinion, is they had guys plowing our roads that weren't too sure where the roads were supposed to be, because we got some real chunks out of
And Daniels?
on Daniels, right on at the corner of Crestview and Hedges. I'm at Crestview and Gibson. There's a huge big divots taken out of
Out of the verge, right, Bill?
the verge.
Mm.
And dirt is piled up.
You know, I did get another complaint from over on Narrow Lane. So maybe I can call the new superintendent of highways. and
Yeah,
I
ask
think
them-
they should be responsible.
If they could just come and
They
lay
put it
that
there,
down.
they should take it away.
Yeah, or just,
And this-
you know, bring it back.
I'm just not
into
sure
the-
where-
This should be part of the snow removal.
I would think, but I'm not sure if, how that's been
Well,
done.
I know when you snow plow, the highway department, their responsibility is to get the snow off the roads.
Yeah,
So, if they break a post box, a mailbox or something like that, they're not responsible for it. You have to fix it,
all
but
right, that I would
this is the
understand,
dirt
but
on the
I'm
side of the
talking
road.
about.
I know what you're talking about.
Need a
I can,
payloader to get it.
I'll just ask Charles and
See,
have a
yeah.
conversation and see if they can't go around and lay some of these
Okay.
mounds of dirt down. into
Or
the-
who's our crew chief here? Who's our sector?
I can't remember what his name is. Is that James? I'm not sure. I'll go.
I never knew. I knew
Yeah,
the
I
old
think his name
one.
is Jim, but I didn't know him as well as I knew the old one, because he used to stop in every day.
All right, so Lisa, you wanted to chime in on something?
If you want, I can give my report on January 24th Architectural Historic and Review Board, but I can also do it next week. And I just wanted to point out that the zoning board this Friday has a record number of cases to be discussed. There are 4 cases, one of which is the revisitation of the Petrillo case. So I think Elliot Mizell might have to have a sandwich on hand, and Bill and some others, because I think this is going to be more than the normal 2 to 3 hours. There's a lot on the agenda for this coming Friday, but I can do,
Elliot? you
Yeah.
anticipate that you're gonna close the hearing.
I
On
don't
Petrillo
know if
at the
that's
next
something we should
meeting.
discuss here, is it, Brian?
Yeah,
We're not going into
Let's
that.
see what happens at the
Yeah.
hearing.
Yep.
anyway, that has a lot. And if you want, I can wait to next week to review quickly the architecture board that happened January 24th.
It's fine by me if you do it now.
Okay, I'll try to power it. There were 3 items for the committee of 2. They were all items that had been on the bigger agenda, but the applicants were supposed to bring small things to solve the problem. 2 of them were approved. with samples and information requested by the board. And one didn't provide the documentation, so it didn't get approved. It will have to be revisited. 135 Crestview Lane was adjourned to next month because they didn't present, didn't have the lighting information requested from the previous month. 230 Town Line Road was adjourned because several things were missing also. And 416 Hedges Lane was adjourned due to the lighting analysis was missing. And the final one, 101 Farm Court, was a small dormer change in a family dwelling that was approved. So that's as quick as I can go without going into crazy detail.
Let me just add on 230 Town Line Road,
Mhm.
that's gonna be with us for a while.
Yeah, I didn't know because of the legal issues if I should get into more, so I kind of left that low.
Has very little resemblance.
Is it?
That's one on the corner. Corner at Daniels and Town Line.
Oh, okay.
Northwest corner.
There's a stop work order, and there's gonna be an enforcement issue.
And that's gonna be around with us for a while. He
Wow, yeah,
Built something totally different than what had been approved.
approved.
And he's gonna have to go back kind of to square one on this.
Yeah.
And he may have to undo a lot of the stuff that he did. But that's gonna be.
Maybe with,
I guess the easiest explanation, but I wrote a note here and I didn't repeat it because sometimes you write yourself notes when you are doing it. I said, trying to pull a fast one was my note. But I didn't want to get into too much because I was afraid of the legal stepping points.
yeah, no, thank you, Lisa.
It's inexplicable. The guy's a builder. So he obviously knew better. And what happens? It's new ground is going to be broken on this one. And
Never done.
your board may get this, Elliot. I think that's where it's gonna wind up. But
That's why I get the big bucks.
exactly.
I thought I was getting the big bucks, Elliot.
Is that a child, Hassan, behind you?
No, it's actually my sister-in-law, Susan Mizell of Trinity Church,
Nice.
one of her many talents.
A baker, baking.
She's a baker, she's a tennis player, she's a real estate broker, she's an artist.
Marilyn, you got anything you want to apprise us of?
Well, Rhodey and I listened to another, participated in the Sag Pond meeting with that Ann Welker had brought everybody together and spoke with the people from Fishes and Wildlife and I'm saying it all wrong, and the Army Corps of Engineers. And basically, Sagaponic, if we want the ability to, apart from, we could do it as a group, but we actually have a permit that we have quite a few years left on. So if we got a biological assessment, we could possibly modify our permit, but we still have to have another meeting to see. But, without the Army Corps and Fish and Wildlife, to see how we collaborate between villages, or if we do. And Anne had recommended a particular company that can actually do the work. So we need to see what that means in terms of dollar amount.
Do what work?
It's an assessment, a biological assessment, because of the piping plovers. But so if you remember, like talking about an incidental take permit, which means making another different place for the plovers to be able to have their nests. So in order for us to be able to open the sag pond when it's necessary, just in, not whenever, just when it's
Necessary.
necessary.
Do you think the Clovers will listen?
Yeah.
Apparently, we have terms down there as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, right,
yeah.
Brody, I forgot about the terms, that was like a new one.
Can you attract them to move?
They say
Build a
so.
feeding station?
They say so, but that's not my area
Put 'em
of
down
expertise.
to
I found it
400.
amazing that the Army Corps had no clue how often the pond has to be open between April and September.
Yeah,
So it was a good meeting, I thought.
yeah.
That work that had been being done there on the bottom of it and all that,
Right.
has that got anything to do with the assessment that they're looking for? or-
No,
That
it's
was
a
totally
different project.
Yeah, I
separate.
asked that question. The DEC and the Army Corps and the Fish and Wildlife don't care about the pond or the health of the pond. They only care about the birds. And
Right,
that's
they
all
don't
wanna
care
know
about the fish or the crabs
Oh.
or everything that dies because of the algae.
Yeah,
Right.
They shouldn't
Because
call
nothing's
them fish
endangered.
and wildlife, yeah.
Exactly.
The
It's
feds work
endangered.
off the endangered list, that's all they care about.
Actually,
That's what it is.
You're right.
Yes.
And,
oh,
Brian, just a question here on this little handout of leaf blowers. In North Haven, between May 1st and October 31st, you're not allowed to use a lawnmower?
Correct.
what? Oh, I didn't see that.
A gas powered lawn.
Gas
very
powered.
operating, right?
You can do the.
Oh, you can do it, walk behind, it's real mower.
Yeah.
Or an
Or
electric.
electric with a long cord. Yep, that's correct. It's an effective full ban.
Geez.
There's an outfit in Southampton that
Wow.
has equipped all their
I'm not
lawn,
even that
lawn
medical.
equipment with battery power.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't.
They do that, actually, they cut Halsey Swanson's old place.
With electric?
Yeah, it's all, they have huge, big mowers. They look like regular mowers, but they're all battery run.
Ride on tractors.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Oh, right.
They're
Well,
gonna
I
do
guess
like-
they're doing electric tractor trailers.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting.
It can't be cheap.
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're not. They make a leaf blower that supposedly has the same, you know, where that go, it has the same power as the torque as the gas.
What
operated.
company is that?
I don't know what the name of it is. They got green mowers are all green and they have battery operated
They've made
blowers
huge.
John Deere?
and
No, I
Well,
know.
there's no reason there can't be. We can have a car go to 100 miles an
Yeah.
hour in 2.5 seconds.
Right.
Okay,
No,
all right.
wait a minute, Carrie,
yeah,
you got anything you want to?
no, I'm good.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn till next week, whatever next week
February
is?
16th.
February 16th.
February 16th at 3
I'll
o'clock.
move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Hi, very interesting.
Okay.
See you on Friday, Elliot.
another one
I'm gonna go get some sleep. I'm gonna need it for Friday,
What time is that meeting on Friday?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
You ever been to one of them?
I see Bill Tillotson.
That one, I haven't.
Get some rest, Bill.
Elliot, do you know how many people you're gonna have?
We'll have a full board.
That sounds interesting.
Richie Thair's gonna be back?
Totally different than I.
Excuse me?
Richie Thair will be back?
Well, I'm not sure whether Richie will, but Jay Dobson is now,
Is it Hawaii at the moment?
I think Richie said he's gonna attend by Zoom.
Oh, you know what it is already?
No, I don't.
Oh. okay.
They're determining the date. They're like.
I just don't know if it's open to the public, though. That's the only reason why I'm
Oh,
hesitating
okay,
on that, but I'll let you know,
yeah.
okay?
So Richie will be virtual.
Yeah, I think I have 5. I'll have Dawn and Marilee, myself, And Bill and Richie has said he would be available on Zoom. So we should have a full board.
Would you remind him that he must be physically visible